What? You're quitting your job? Yeah, I've got to work at my father-in-law's company. I've already discussed it with my current employer and am preparing to resign. So, he told you to come work at his company? No, I'm planning to ask my father about it later. Oh? You've talked about marriage but not about work? I've already asked a lot from him regarding the marriage. I'm just waiting a bit before making another request. I'm happy I won't have to work at the same place as you anymore, but are you sure you want to quit a job you've had for so long? Of course. I'm gonna be welcomed with open arms and great conditions. Who wants to work forever for a measly salary? But you haven't even discussed this with the boss yet, right? That's easy. If I ask, it'll be done in no time. Next in line to be the boss, huh? That's a big jump. 2 days after our divorce, I ran into my ex-husband. It seems he remarried within these 2 days. And the new wife? A 19-year-old heiress. He's all set on taking over her family's company. I'm marrying a 19-year-old heiress. Goodbye to the life of a penniless. Then, bye. They seemed satisfied, gloating about their happiness as they waved goodbye with smiles. Seeing my naive ex-husband and his young, inexperienced heiress, I started feeling amused. He's not cut out to be a boss. Because what that girl is saying is, my name is Emily. I'm 30 years old and work in corporate insurance sales. Honestly, my sales are pretty average, and my salary isn't all that high. But I don't hate my job. Since I pitch to companies, I often deal with HR personnel, but sometimes I meet with big shots like CEOs and directors. These people, unlike someone like me who's just a small part of the company, have all sorts of ideas. Just talking to them can be a learning experience, and they often make me see things in a new light. However, some of them can be quite eccentric, leaving me at a loss for how to react. Look at this. This is my daughter, she's in high school. She's adorable. This was taken on a trip, and this one's her relaxing at home. Whenever I go to talk about insurance, there's this CEO who spends at least 30 minutes showing off pictures of his daughter on his phone. Every time, I struggle to respond. I wonder if his daughter knows her photos are being shown to strangers. Being a teenager, she might not like it. But I guess it's not my place to comment on someone else's family or parenting. Right, she's very cute. Can we get back to our discussion now? So, I try to find the right moment to steer the conversation back on track as quickly as possible. Certainly, my husband, who prioritizes efficiency in his work, wouldn't bother with timing like I do. He'd swiftly change the topic. My husband, Michael, works at the same company as me, and even in the same department. Michael and I got married 2 years ago. We met at work, of course. He was 2 years my senior and initially, we were just colleagues. Just propose this plan for now. But both plans have their merits, don't they? If they complain about the first plan, then offer the other as an alternative. What if they decide on the first plan and later have issues because we didn't introduce the other? When that happens, we'll just deal with it. Worrying about potential problems that might not even occur is just inefficient. When I first joined, I thought Michael was somewhat careless in his work. But working together showed me that wasn't the case. He's all about quick decisions and actions. It's not because he's sloppy, but because he bases his actions on solid knowledge and experience. He rarely makes mistakes. And on the off chance he does, he has the skill to manage the fallout. Over time, I came to admire his efficiency and how he handles a lot of work with ease. Our romance didn't have a dramatic beginning. We just naturally started dating after spending a lot of time together at work, having lunch and dinner together. Workplace romances are often like this. Maybe it's about becoming comfortable with each other's presence. Even after marriage, I still respect him as a colleague. His decisiveness is something I can't quite emulate, being somewhat indecisive myself. But that same quality of his led to an unexpected situation. We continued working at the same place after marriage. There hadn't been any major changes in our lives until 2 years into our marriage. I'm pregnant. 3 months along. Really? That's great. Hearing my news, Michael raised his arms in joy, almost hitting the ceiling. 2 years into our marriage. We had been worried about not being able to have a child, so it's no wonder Michael was overjoyed like a kid himself. If I didn't have to be careful, I'd be jumping for joy too. I'll handle the cooking and cleaning. Just sit back and relax on the weekends. But my belly isn't even that big yet, and I feel fine today. I can move around, you know? That's exactly the kind of carelessness I'm talking about. What if you get tired from cooking or slip while cleaning? All right. I guess I'll take it easy then. I couldn't help but laugh at the serious look on his face. He's always helped around the house, but since finding out I'm pregnant, he's been even more proactive. It's sweet that he's so concerned about my well-being, but with him doing so much, I find myself with more free time than I know what to do with at home. It's a luxury problem, I suppose. 3 months after he started treating me like a princess, I began handing over my work responsibilities as I prepared to take time off for childbirth and childcare. Since we work at the same place, Michael would be taking over some of my tasks. This company is due for a renewal soon, and that one is worried about liability risk, so suggest this plan to them. Yeah. You don't need to explain in detail. Just give me the company info and the insurance status, and I'll handle the rest. Just hand over that list. Michael took the documents I had prepared for the handover and, without listening to the end of my explanation, returned to his desk. Normally, I'd want someone to listen to my full explanation, but I knew he'd be fine. Besides, if he runs into anything he doesn't understand, we can always talk about it at work or at home. So, without worrying about him, I gratefully used the extra time for other tasks. Just as I thought, he smoothly took over the work without any issues. He was so efficient that the work left my hands earlier than expected. True to his nature, he's quick to decide and act. He's always fast in both judgment and action. As the rest of my tasks were gradually handed over, I was ready to go on leave with peace of mind. But just before I was about to start my break, a new worry suddenly emerged. Going out again this week? Yeah, just some social commitments. What about dinner? Don't need it. I'll be home late, so go to bed without waiting for me. As I rubbed my growing belly, I watched Michael leave the house for his weekend outings. When the front door closed with a thud, I felt a sense of emptiness and slowly made my way to the living room sofa. Sitting down, I started planning the rest of my day. Cleaning, shopping and cooking. Lately, Michael would leave home early on weekends and not return until late at night. He also stopped helping around the house. One's husband started coming home late and his attitude changed abruptly. This is a classic sign of infidelity. But Michael had been so kind until recently, and I was nearing my due date. So, even though the thought of infidelity crossed my mind, it quickly faded. I figured it must be work-related. Michael had taken on a lot of my workload so I could take maternity leave. He's efficient, so he ended up with more work than others. Plus, he already had a lot on his plate. Even for someone like him, a sudden increase in workload could understandably lead to exhaustion and irritation. Thinking the change in Michael was because of me, I became overly conscious of his reactions. At work, I'd glance at him, trying to gauge his mood. At home, worried I might irritate him, I spoke less. When I absolutely had to talk to him, I carefully picked the right moment and watched his expressions. With his attitude change and my cautious approach, it was inevitable that our relationship became strained. I began to feel a distance between us. However, that gap was filled by our child. Wow, she's adorable today too. You say the same thing every time. You're with her 24/7, but I'm not. Let me enjoy this. Okay. After a while, I took maternity leave and gave birth. Now, I'm at my parents' house with our daughter. Since it's close to our home, Michael visits every weekend. He arrives in the morning and stays glued to our daughter until the evening. He's so fixated that I half-jokingly wonder if time has stopped for him. Seeing his face, I feel reassured, despite being a bit exasperated. Here, the juice and snacks you asked me to buy. Let me know if you need anything else. Thanks, this is a big help. If I ask my mom, she never buys the right things. I received a store bag from Michael with a smile. With the birth of our daughter, Michael returned to being the kind, caring husband he was before. Seeing her face probably blew away all his work stress. I hoped we would return to being a close couple, now with our daughter making our lives happier than before. But 6 months after our daughter's birth, his attitude began to change again. Keep it down. Make her stop crying. Don't be ridiculous. I took our crying daughter from the bedroom to calm her. Her night crying was a challenge for me too. But it's something unavoidable. In the living room, I soothed her until she stopped crying. Michael's attitude had changed again, and he wasn't helping with childcare or housework. So, calming our daughter at night became my sole responsibility. Of course, taking care of a child isn't just about dealing with night crying. I needed his help. But he seemed to have no intention of helping with childcare or housework. Sorry. I just can't handle everything alone. Can you help me? Huh? Aren't you off work right now? You've got plenty of time. How can you not manage? It's just your efficiency that's bad. Hearing Michael's words, I tried hard not to grip our daughter too tightly in my arms. Michael is always efficient, quickly and neatly doing everything. But his habit of making quick decisions and actions means he also makes mistakes sometimes. Does he think childcare is like work, where if there's a mistake, you just fix it? What if something happens to our daughter? My ears hurt from our daughter's crying, and my headache from Michael's incomprehensible behavior. At this rate, he might make a serious mistake in caring for our child. It was late at night, but I decided to talk to him about it, returning to the bedroom with our now quiet daughter. When I got there, Michael was already asleep. I debated whether to wake him up to talk, but knowing that he would be grumpy and unlikely to listen properly if I did, I decided against it. I was exhausted too. So I chose to wait until the next morning to address it and went to sleep. However, I soon regretted not taking immediate action. The next morning, I woke up to our daughter's crying, but her voice sounded unusually faint and distant. I thought Michael might be soothing her, but he was asleep next to me. Apprehensively, I looked towards the crib where she should have been sleeping. She wasn't there. Instantly wide awake, I jumped out of bed and hurried to the living room, following the sound of her cries. There, I found my daughter alone on a mattress. In a panic, I picked her up to check for any injuries. As I frantically checked our daughter, Michael appeared, scratching his head lazily. Don't leave the bedroom door open. The crying was so loud, it woke me up. His words made me understand the whole ridiculous situation. Michael, annoyed by our daughter's night crying and unable to sleep, had moved her to the living room to sleep alone after I fell asleep. What was he thinking, doing something so dangerous? Did he think he could just fix anything that happened? In my fury, I forgot I was holding our daughter and yelled at him. Why would you do this? What if something had happened to her? Don't start yelling this early. It's fine. I organized the bed so she couldn't fall, and I put blankets around her. It was only for about 4 hours, nothing was going to happen. It's too late if something happens. Enough. You're too noisy this early in the morning. Michael, clearly finding it bothersome to talk, headed to the bathroom, scratching his head. He seemed to treat childcare like his work. He thinks it's okay to leave our daughter alone because he reduced the risk of an accident. Does he really want to prioritize his sleep over our daughter's safety? I can't understand his way of thinking at all. I didn't bother with breakfast and just sat in the living room, waiting for Michael to return from the bathroom. I heard his footsteps approaching and, as he entered the living room, our eyes met. He looked clearly annoyed and started getting ready for work without a word. He left the house an hour earlier than usual. I let out a heavy sigh, realizing I could trust him with work but not with being a father to our daughter. That evening, Michael returned home earlier than usual. Hearing his arrival at the entrance, I checked the clock. It was just past 6 p.m. I thought that Michael coming home early meant he wanted to talk about our daughter. If we could discuss our married life and how to care for our daughter, maybe we could improve the situation. But as he entered the living room, he thrust divorce papers in front of me and uttered unbelievable words. "You're not needed anymore. Let's get a divorce." Michael seemed determined to make quick decisions and actions, even about divorce. Faced with such unexpected and nonsensical words, I thought anyone would be left dumbfounded. However, I was already filled with anger towards Michael due to his recent behavior and, above all, his treatment of our daughter this morning. His unreasonable demand was the last straw. Upon hearing his words, my anger reached its peak in a fraction of a second. "If it's a divorce you want, I'll be the one to ask for it." I snatched the divorce papers he was holding and, grabbing only my wallet and keys, I left the house with our daughter. Our divorce was finalized smoothly. Both of us were willing, but a significant reason was that Michael readily agreed to generous child support. After leaving the house and getting divorced, I started living at my parents' house with my daughter. I have a job, and my parents are helping with childcare, so I'm not worried about the future. The divorce was less shocking than expected, mainly because Michael's behavior had been the cause, and what he did to our daughter was appalling. However, the thought of working with my ex-husband again after my maternity leave ends does dampen my spirits. But I still have about half a year before returning to work, so I hope my feelings will change by then. 2 days after the divorce was finalized, I left my daughter with my mother and decided to wander around town for a change of scenery. Just as I was about to enter a shopping mall without any particular purpose, I ran into the last person I wanted to see. I was caught off guard and didn't notice his approach because of the automatic doors. I tried to pass by, hoping he hadn't noticed me. "Hey, isn't that Emily?" I wished he would just keep walking, even if he noticed me. But my ex-husband, Michael, deliberately stopped me as I tried to pass by. Pretending not to notice, I kept walking deeper into the shopping mall, but he went as far as to grab my shoulder to stop me. "Hey! Don't ignore me." "Oh, it's you." Given his persistence, I felt it would be wrong to keep ignoring him, so I reluctantly decided to talk to him. When I turned to face him, I noticed a young woman standing beside him. I couldn't help but stare at her in disbelief. "You're curious about her, right?" "I knew you would be." It seemed Michael stopped me to explain about this woman. He was already grinning. "She's my new wife. We're already married." "What?" I was shocked, more so than when he demanded a divorce. It felt like being hit on the head with a blunt object. Not only was he remarried just 2 days after our divorce, but his new wife was much younger. At 33, Michael seemed way too old for her. "You look so surprised." Michael, satisfied with my reaction, laughed loudly, not caring about the surroundings. The woman gently tugged at his sleeve. "Yeah, this is Emily, my former wife." "Nice to meet you, I'm Sophia, Michael's new wife." "Nice to meet you." Hearing her name, I looked at her again with disbelief. Michael's grin widened. "You must be thinking you've seen her face before, right? You should have seen her before. Maybe not met, but seen. Seen her face but not met." I suddenly realized why she looked familiar. "She's the daughter of the president of the company I used to handle." "Exactly. You remembered it well." Now that I knew who she was, my mind cleared. But knowing her identity as the president's daughter brought a new wave of unease. "You married in these 2 days? You met her after you took over my job, right?" "Yeah. That president, just like you said, he really bragged about Sophia. The photos the president showed me of you were from when you were in high school. So, you're in college now?" "Yes. I'm 19 now, in college. I've been doing data entry part-time at my dad's company since I started college. I've never spoken to you, but I've seen you from a distance, Emily." He really found himself a young wife to remarry. Legally okay, but morally questionable to some. I stared at Michael with a cold look. It was pure chance that I found Sophia. She was working quietly in the corner, so I didn't notice her at first. That's right. I had to work alone in the corner, and being the president's daughter, people didn't really approach me. I felt a bit lonely until Michael started talking to me. I looked at Michael with a mix of disgust and disbelief, but they mistook it for envy and began telling their love story. But knowing when they met, I understood why Michael's behavior had changed. I thought his attitude changed because of the increased workload after taking over my job. But it seems I was overthinking it. The simple truth was he was having an affair. When our daughter was born, he almost came back to us, but he chose the 19-year-old president's daughter over his newborn. So, your relationship started a while back, huh? That's not true. We started dating after our divorce, and it was a whirlwind proposal and marriage within half a day. Sure. His explanation was obviously a lie. He must be worried I'd complain if he admitted their relationship started before our divorce. I don't have any evidence of their affair, so saying they started dating after the divorce must feel safe to him. But he doesn't have to worry. I'm not interested in pursuing the infidelity issue. It's not that I've given up. Something else has caught my attention. I continued the conversation, extracting the information I needed. I'm surprised the president agreed to your marriage with her. At first, he was strongly opposed. But she convinced him. My dad gives in to anything if I ask. A little crying and persistence does the trick. They talked as if they had overcome great obstacles together. But it sounded more like the president caved in to avoid upsetting his daughter. Sophia, are you going to work at your dad's company after graduating? Yes, that's the plan. And we're hoping Michael will join the company too. What? You're changing jobs? Of course, now that I'm married to Sophia, I have to work at her dad's company. I've already spoken to my current employer and am preparing to resign. So, the president has told you to join his company? No, I'm going to ask him next time. We haven't discussed it yet. But you've talked about marriage and not about work? I've asked the president for a big favor regarding the marriage, so I'm waiting a bit before asking for another favor. It seems there's a trick to getting favors from the president. I could tell Sophia was completely spoiled by her father. I'm glad I won't have to work with you anymore, but are you sure you want to quit a job you've had for so long? Of course. I'm Sophia's husband, right? I'll be welcomed with great terms. Who wants to work forever for a meager salary? Oops, you're still at that company. My bad. Great terms, but you haven't talked to the president yet, right? That's easy. If I ask, it'll be done in no time. I'm planning to ask the president to welcome Michael as the next CEO and train him. Next CEO, huh? That's a big jump. They imagined a rosy future, looking very pleased with themselves. Watching this naive president's daughter and my ex-husband who had made a serious mistake, I began to feel amused. I'm marrying a 19-year-old president's daughter. You're back to being single and lonely. Plus, you're not working right now, just a penniless person living off child support. When you return to work, please continue handling our company. Take care. Satisfied with their happiness gloat, they waved at me with smiles and started to leave. Indeed, as Michael said, I'm currently on maternity leave and only receiving child benefits, not earning money from work. Even when I return, my salary will be average, so from a president's perspective, I might be considered poor. But Michael is making a big mistake. And the cause is right next to him, the president's daughter. Watching the president's daughter walk away, I imagined the kind of face my ex-husband, Michael, would soon make, and I couldn't help but burst into laughter. You're not going to become a CEO. I'll work hard to become one. Don't be so smug in the end. I just wanted to give him a warning, but he thought I was expressing sour grapes. Impossible for you to become. Because what that girl says is. I murmured softly, letting my inner thoughts slip out. If Michael had known the truth then, the damage might have been minimal. Such a pity. 3 months after running into Michael at the shopping mall, it was time to start preparing to return to work. I was gearing up to work hard again. Then, like a blow to my enthusiasm, I received a call from Michael. It seemed he had learned the truth. Hey! Remember you said I couldn't become a CEO? Did you know? His words were incomplete, but I knew what he meant. Yes, I knew. No matter how much Mocha pleaded with her dad, making you CEO was impossible, right? Why didn't you tell me then? That Mocha's dad was just a hired CEO. Michael sounded really panicked, his voice shaking. I wished I could see his expression over the phone. Indeed, Mocha's father was a hired CEO. It means there was an owner above him. The CEO manages the company but doesn't have the final say in crucial decisions. The decision about who will be the successor to the company is not something the CEO can decide on their own. Michael couldn't fix this, even with his usual efficiency. Sophia probably didn't know that her father was a hired CEO. Or maybe she didn't understand what that position entails. Otherwise, she wouldn't have suggested something as preposterous as welcoming Michael as the next CEO right away. At 19, it wouldn't be strange for her to be aware that her father was a hired CEO. However, she seemed to be indulged by her father, who holds the title of CEO, and didn't bother to understand the company's structure or her father's exact position. Additionally, while she worked part-time at the company, those around her, assuming she already knew, probably didn't bother to explain these details to her in depth. That's why I warned you that you couldn't become a CEO. Damn it! I should have researched the company more. You might have realized it earlier if you had listened to my explanations when you took over my job. I had handed over my work to Michael before my leave. He had taken only the necessary documents from me and didn't bother with the details. I learned about the hired CEO during casual conversations with the president, information not crucial enough for my reports. Michael's impulsive, efficient work style backfired. I've already quit my job, what should I do now? Can't you just get a regular job there? Even a hired CEO has that much authority, right? That's the thing. Sophia and I are talking about divorce. What? Really? I burst out laughing. How much more could this president's daughter and Michael amuse me? It was as if they were doing it on purpose to cheer me up. We've only been married 3 months. She's always complaining, won't do housework, just wants to go out. Well, that's typical for a 19-year-old college student. I had overlooked something important. Michael remarried a 19-year-old college student. At that age, they're full of life and love. Surrounded by others enjoying campus life, being married and restricted would be hard to bear. Especially for a president's daughter, spoiled by her father. Perhaps she initially liked Michael, but reality hit her after marriage. Michael's new wife likely married him in the heat of a passionate romance, but probably couldn't endure the gap between ideal and reality. It's understandable for a 19-year-old college student. Michael's choice to propose so quickly, thinking he'd benefit from marrying the president's daughter, was also to blame. In a way, she might be a victim too. You didn't think about her at all, only about yourself. It's your own fault. So, how's the divorce proceeding? She's 19, you know. You better not be trying to manipulate her into getting back together. That's just it. I haven't been able to contact Sophia since she left the house. Then how are you handling the negotiations? The president got involved. Sophia ran back to her parents' house, asking her father for help. Then he contacted me. Said he won't forgive me for making his daughter cry. Told me to wait for a call from his lawyer. I shuddered, imagining the angry president. He adored his daughter, showing off her pictures to others. Despite marrying her off, she returned home crying for help within 3 months. I can understand why he couldn't forgive that. Even as a hired CEO, a president is still a president. He has money and power. Given that such a person told him he wouldn't forgive him, it's no wonder that he is trembling in fear. Emily, what do you think I should do? I don't know. Figure it out yourself. I ended the call with a laugh. Feeling better knowing Michael was in trouble, I decided to take my daughter for a walk in the park. A few days after Michael's call, I received a call from Sophia. She wanted to meet me. I was a bit cautious, but the young president's daughter could also be seen as a victim of my ex-husband. Feeling somewhat sorry for her, I decided to meet her at a cafe nearby. Sorry, she said, handing me a clear file as soon as she sat down. Inside were printed messages and photos of her with Michael. It's evidence of the affair. Why are you giving me this? She didn't answer, just looked down. Well, her inability to answer probably says it all. Probably her father, the president, told her to give it to me. But if he had directed her to hand over evidence of an affair, that raised problems. So, this encounter was her way of apologizing for her actions. That's all there is to it. I hadn't planned to claim for the affair, but I needed to maintain a relationship with her father's company. I tucked the file into my bag, feeling burdened. He also needed to pay child support. But he was currently jobless. When we divorced, we split our savings, so I knew his financial situation. Michael had called me a penniless person, but it seemed like karma hit him harder. He needs to find a job fast, as his savings will quickly run out. I'm living with my daughter at my parents' house. Like Sophia, I'm relying on my parents. But I'm paying my rent and living expenses, unlike her. My daughter is growing well. With my job return approaching soon, I'm ready to work hard for the sake of my daughter.